Hey everybody, it's Comedex and welcome back to the Draft Report. This week I'm bringing you my Orzhov control deck from Masters 25. This deck was sweet. I went 3-0, 6-0 in the games, didn't drop a single game. And it's a strategy that I didn't really see on any live streams beforehand. I'm sure it happened, but it's not a strategy that I knew was viable going into the set. But once I started seeing stuff like Pillory of the Sleepless, I'm like, alright, this is my jam. So, the way that this deck really works is by trying to make the game stall out as long as possible. Perfect cards for that are these incredible blockers, Will-O-The-Wisp and Nyx Fleece Ram. Will-O-The-Wisp was kind of underwhelming. The only matchup that was really good was against red-green monsters. I could just pacify everything they had with Trample and then block everything else forever. Nyx Fleece Ram, though, this card was sick in like every matchup. It would just get on the board. They'd never want to spend their removal on it because I do have my own threats, like these Guys of the Moors as flyers. So it would just sit there and accrue life gain value over the game, and it almost always had relevant blocks that were saving me from even more damage. Great card. Yeah, the other stuff we have to stall, obviously, is Pacifism, all the removal, some Disfigure, Pillar of the Sleepless. This card is kind of like the biggest win condition of this deck. You just drop it on their opponent, and then when you're making the game take so long, they just eventually happen to die from the upkeep trigger. And I got 2 of those. Also Murder for just more removal. Yeah, and then the other thing, to make sure that we last super long, obviously there's that stuff to stall the game out, but then the reason we want the game to go insanely long, not only for Pillory, but also for just card advantage, we have a lot of cards that will get us multiple things off of just one card. So Dauntless Cathar will come back later as a spirit, so it's not just kind of one card, it's kind of 2 for 1. Oromancer, when it enters the battlefield, will get back a Pillory if they manage to sack their guy to a Phyrexian guy or whatever. It will also get back, and this isn't irrelevant, it'll get back the Nyx Fleece Ram in case they actually spent a murder or something on it. Or alternatively, and this happened twice, if I Chroma's Vengeance when Ram's on the board, I can just Oromancer, get that Ram back. Ram is incredible on an empty board. Yeah, then the other stuff for card advantage, Undead Gladiator, this card's awesome. Like, it just keeps coming back. Anytime you draw a land, you can just draw this guy instead. And in doing that, you either have a 3-1 body, or you can just cycle him to keep drawing more cards. He's definitely very good. He makes all of your draws relevant, which means that just having that guy on the board, even if you're going to use an Chroma's Vengeance with nothing else in your hand, like nothing else relevant in your hand, if you just have like one land, if you have Undead Gladiator in your graveyard or on the board and your opponent also has no resources in hand, then you basically automatically win once you've Chroma's Vengeance. Because you Chroma's Vengeance, and then you're always drawing relevant cards, whereas your opponent is just top decking for days. We have 3 Guys of the Moors to actually put pressure on. What these almost always ended up doing is these were like the only thing that they ever had to use their removal on. So they did. So that let me get away with keeping stuff like Will-O-The-Wisp and Nyx Fleece Ram and blocking forever, which was good. They did end up killing some opponents too, because a 3-1 flyer is not irrelevant. But they were mostly there to draw removal. The other cute stuff we have this Zombify with these 3. All 3 of these have cycling. Obviously, the Twisted Abominations have swamp cycling, and the Horror of the Broken Lands has regular cycling. So you could, in theory, Zombify out one of these bad boys on turn 4, which is nice, but it never happened in my games. I always ended up just Zombifying something after a Vengeance, which is good too. Then we have Ravenous Chupacabra, another 2 for 1. You get to kill one of their creatures, and you have your own 2/2 body. If you draft a lot, then you probably know that guy from Rivals of Ixalan. Great card. Then we have more just flying threats that your opponent has to deal with. Nothing crazy goes on with these. Just a Griffin Protector. The trigger doesn't go on that often. And then Bloodhunter Bat. I think Bloodhunter Bat's actually better in this deck than the Griffin Protector, since it gives you some life. So I actually had a couple more Bloodhunter bats in the sideboard. If I did anything different, I'd probably swap out that Griffin Protector for another Bloodhunter bat, just because I'm not getting too many enter the battlefield triggers to get more damage out of the Griffin, and the Bloodhunter bat automatically gets 2 more damage out when it comes into play. So yeah, that's pretty much all the cards I talked about. I didn't talk about Fiend Hunter, but everyone knows Fiend Hunter is great. It's Oblivion Ring on a stick, or I guess technically Journey to Nowhere on a stick. Great card. The only other thing really worth mentioning is I'm running 16 lands, which might seem a little low with a curve like this, but every card that I have that's 5 or more also has cycling, and I definitely have cycled all 4 of these at least once. So that worked out really well. So yeah, super annoying deck actually. I put basically all my opponents on tilt. They did not have fun games of Magic, because it takes a long time to kill someone with this deck, but it kills people consistently, even if it does so very slowly. So I guess it's only 6 minutes in. I got some more time. If anyone cares, I'll go ahead and go over the matchups. Round 1, I played against a red-white deck. Yeah, they were trying to assemble Hordling Outburst with Valor and Akros, which is adorable. Unfortunately, they only got 1 Hordling Outburst, and they got a giant stack of Mog Flunkies, and a deck with a decent amount of removal is insanely good against Mog Flunky. You just kill whatever's not the Mog Flunky, and the Flunky has to sit there forever, so that's how that match went. The only thing kind of terrifying that happened in that match was they got a Spike Shot Elder with the +2/+2 white aura on it. That was really bad, because none of your can't attack or block removal is any good on that, since it can still use its ability. So yeah, that game was awkward, but I ended up managing to get there by just stacking both Pillories onto the Goblin, so that they had to sacrifice it, because they were using the white aura that you could sacrifice a permanent to give a thing flying. So that was the other awkward thing. If I ever put a Pillory on anything but the Goblin, then it would basically just be a regular removal spell. So I kind of just kept the Pillories in my hand, hoping to get rid of the Goblin with a Murder by then, or a Fiend Hunter, but I never did. So then eventually I was just like, screw it, stack the Pillories on the Goblin, make him sack the Goblin, race him with your Geists. And it worked out. The main reason it worked out was because I managed to get out things like Undead Gladiator and Twisted Abomination that they can't just kill off with the Elder immediately. The second round I played against a white-blue kind of flicker deck. That certainly would have been the worst matchup. They got mana screwed game 1, stuck on 1 color, which was unfortunate. And then game 2, they actually had a really good hand, and it would have worked out very well for them. Because the way it went was, like, turn 3 I drop Undead Gladiator, they go Mana War. Next turn I drop Undead Gladiator, they go Mana War. Next turn I drop Undead Gladiator, they go Mana War. And then the end of my turn, they go White Main Lion, pick up Mana War, and shit like that. Luckily for me, though, they didn't know that I had a Wrath. So, yeah, I kind of just kept dropping Gladiator out and just being like, this really sucks. I can't play anything else in my hand, even though I had, all kinds of other stuff to do. And yeah, that got them to just keep playing their stuff on the board. I mean, it was probably still the right thing to do, to just always play that stuff on the board, even if they knew I had a Wrath, but this Vengeance managed to 4-for-1 them, I believe, and there was no coming back at that point. I had like 5 or 6 relevant cards in my hand, and they had, I think, 1 or 2. So yeah, that wasn't the greatest match. Vengeance really took it for me, and then the first game they were mana screwed. The last match was definitely the easiest matchup. Played against red-green monsters, and luckily they didn't have that much trample. So anytime they got anything with trample out, that's when we dropped the pacifisms or the Pillories. And if they don't have trample, good old Will-o'-the-Wisp, good old Undead Gladiator, and Twisted Abomination. So yeah, red-green, they didn't have any sack outlets to get rid of the Pillories. They actually didn't end up with any enchantment removal either. So yeah, those games were very long, and they were basically won by Pillories and Geists, because they also didn't have very many flyers. They did have a Rurik Thar, which has reach, but when you pillory a Rurik Thar, that's pretty sweet. Simply because I can just pillory the Rurik Thar and then keep getting him with the Geists. Which is really awkward for them, because then if they want to kill the Geist, they have to take 6 to the face from the Rurik, because he's still on the board for the pillory, and I have more life to utilize with its effect, because I'm not losing a life each upkeep like they are. So yeah, that was my my first and probably only Masters 25 draft deck. This set is very expensive. I don't expect to draft too much more often. I may do it one more time. If I do, there will be a video for that. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with my next draft video.